So this project is about undoing some damage that was done to 4 volumes of this collection. This is what you see here vertically, that's volumes 1 through 32, but the complete set would be 36 volumes. And the other 4 were taken apart by me to yield medieval fragments. And if you want to learn more about that, have a look at the channel where I talk about it. But what this is going to be about is how to put together the other 4 volumes. So as you can see, the text block is completely separated from the binding, and that was because these ribs here were snipped along down each side, and so the text block came apart. So what we're going to be doing is undoing that and reattaching the text blocks back to their bindings in such a way that you'd never know that these books had ever suffered the way they did. And if you're wondering, oh, that looks a little bit almost like Gothic writing, you're correct. There were medieval fragments in these books that were harvested after the text blocks were removed. So what are we going to do? Well, maybe the best thing to do is to start with the end in mind. And so, in the spirit of Blue Peter, for those who grew up in England, this is one that I did earlier. So the way in which binding worked 300 years ago was the pages were gathered into groups of typically 8, which were called quires or gatherings, and each of them had a different threading, but those threads all came through and made little loops in these 5 places. And the idea was that you'd have a long thread that would go through those loops and would actually attach to the boards in these 5 places. Now, I snipped those before, but what I'm having to do now is do the extremely labor-intensive task of undoing all of that and actually getting back to the a situation where there's thread through all of the loops. So that's kind of the destination, at least the first part of the destination, is to get to a position where we have threads that we'll be able to attach back to the boards. I won't lie, this is an incredibly labor-intensive task. And basically, it involves teasing apart, first of all, removing any sort of gunk that was originally attached, which could be leather, it could be book glue, whatever, and then starting to tease out the twine that goes along the length of the loops. And it's a very labor-intensive task, and you just have to do it one by one. You can probably do 2 loops at once if you like, but that really is the task at hand. So it typically takes me a few hours to do 1 book. I've done 2 so far. This is the 3rd. So I'm not going to bore you with watching me do all of this, but just take the message that if you want to end up in literary purgatory, snip these ribs, because then eventually something will happen that means you need to undo what you did. And I keep thinking vasectomies are easy, vasophilosoptomies, the reversals, are very difficult. And this is the reversal. So a word about threading these loops. So this is an example of what was removed. This is the original 300-year-old sort of twine, and this is what I'm threading it with. You'll notice this is a lot thicker than this. Now, when this book was originally put together, it was not put together like this with these loops and then a piece of thread put through. Instead, you started with the threads, literally 5 threads, and there was I'm sure, a very beautiful to watch process by which each gathering of pages was tied around the threads in an alternating fashion to slowly build up the book, which meant that the threads came first, which meant the threads could be basically quite thick and the loops pulled tight around the threads. Now, we don't have that opportunity, unfortunately, so, and to try and keep ourselves from going completely insane through this process, we just have to accept that the thread that goes through these loops on restoration is going to be a little bit thinner. There are many different ways, potentially, that you can thread them. The way that has been most successful for me has been to take a piece of tape, put the thread halfway across, bend out a plastic paper clip and put that. The paper clip, as you can see, is basically the same width as the thread. That's deliberate. And then make a little flag and then cut it close so you only have a minimal overhang of tape. Then what we do is fold the tape over like this. Resist the temptation to build up a great big thickness of tape, because all you're going to do is exceed the width of the loops and you'll just end up having a very frustrating time. So once we've done that, we use an appropriate device. I'm using an old fondue fork here, just to tease open the loops and make sure that they're ready to permit the passage of the thread. Yeah, that's about right, I think. Like so. And then lead in with the metal end first, like so. Work your way around. You probably won't get the whole way round in one go. You'll probably get 2/3 like I've done here. I found it easiest just to say, okay, that's good. Pull it through. And then when you get to here, now to deal with this little flag, what I've found useful is to just start twisting. And you push in just as this flag is in effect starting to roll up against the book itself inside the loops. And then as that happens, you'll find that it actually becomes, hopefully, by twisting, it's more willing to actually pass through. And either for the purposes of this video, it will work, or it won't. And hopefully I will get lucky. Trust me, this is the least frustrating of the methods. Every other way I've tried to do this is beyond frustrating. Okay, that worked. Let's see if we can just, in the time we have left, complete the job. There we go, just work our way through the remaining loops. Same thing again. When we get to the little flag, start twisting. The flag gets pressed against the actual body of the book. Just work at the loops a little bit with your fingers if that helps. And then come on, you know you want to. Like so. So you probably saw the change in lighting conditions. It took me about an hour and a half to actually thread all 5 sections of loops. I actually got this one backwards, as you can see. That won't be a problem though. So that's basically that stage done for the book. word of advice, don't be tempted to cut these yet. There'll be a time for that, but for now it's you just stand less risk of accidentally pulling a thread out if it's all threaded together. So there we go. This is now ready to start the process of attachment to the binding once again.